What is it that makes this competition special for Real Madrid and for AC Milan?
I think as much as anything, it's the knowledge that it's what's expected of you. And so when push comes to shove, you give that little bit extra. Because there really can't be too much more to it. You know, at the end of the day, when you look on paper and you look at matchups and you look at players and you look at teams, and Milan's a great example. On paper, I mean, Milan shouldn't have been a match for Napoli. But as you said, when the big game comes around and you start talking about the Bareses and the Maldinis of this world, and then as a player at that club, I think there's an expectation that not only is felt around the place, but you kind of feel an expectation of yourself, which pushes you, I believe, to do things that either you haven't done before or maybe you didn't think you were capable of still. You know, the likes of Giroud. I mean, Giroud over these 2 legs has been a great old-fashioned centre forward. He's held the ball up when he's had to. He's scored, albeit he scored when he had to. He still missed some chances, but he was still there. You know, he was one of the main reasons that they've gotten through in this tie, even though he did miss a penalty. I mean, Giroud's a guy that shouldn't be playing at this level at his age. I don't believe. For what he's got left in his legs, he shouldn't be playing at this level, but he is. And as I said, I think the DNA of Milan has gotten into his bones, and he's producing right now when really he shouldn't be.
Yeah, there was a feeling, Mark, the last time Milan won this competition, as they went through it, they just had momentum that built and built and built. Do you get that feeling from Milan this time, even although Stevie says he doesn't fancy them to reach the final?
Well, we have to be realistic. You know, they're probably going to meet Man City or Real Madrid in the final. I think that would be a juggernaut against them. But I'll go back to 2005. I mean, nobody gave Liverpool a chance because that Milan side was the best in the world at the time. And Milan was outstanding. And Liverpool, you know, the miracle of Istanbul, as they call it. And anything can happen in a one-off game. Over 2 legs, you back Madrid or Man City to beat Milan quite easily, I think. But in a one-off game, despite the limitations, you still got a chance. But you know, I think what Stevie says is right. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons it's held back the likes of Man City and PSG over the years. That, you know, when you're a player at those clubs, you look around and I'm sure Stevie felt it at Liverpool back in the 80s. He would have seen the guys from the 70s, and you just feel that inspiration or that saying you walk in their footsteps. Yeah. The guys that have done it, and it's just that I'd imagine it just gives you something extra. Man City haven't got that. PSG haven't got that. But if you see the goals of the past, I mean, you know, Franco Baresi, I mean, it's just like the guy's a giant, isn't he? And if you're playing at Milan, you think, I've got to do what he did. I've got to be like him. He can do. And I just think that little 1% makes a difference. But obviously, if Milan play Madrid in the final, Madrid have got even more history than AC Milan. So, you know, maybe it counts it out.
Tell me you didn't ask for their autographs, please.
No, I was actually in the bathroom, so it wouldn't have been the right place to ask.
If tomorrow's games go according to plan, with the leads from the first leg taken on, so that Manchester City and Inter both go through to the semi-finals, who are we making as favourites? Stevie, I'll start with you for the 2 semi-finals. If it's Real Madrid and Man City, who are you making as favourites? And if it's a Milan derby, who are you making as favourites? Stevie first.
I'm going to go with Manchester City.
Okay.
You know, for every single footballing reason, I think the reason you go with Real Madrid, if you were to do that, would be about what we've just been talking about. Been there before, done it, seen it, know how to get it done, seem to have some sort of out of this world connection and hold on the Champions League. But if we're talking in football terms, you have to go with Manchester City. The way they're playing now, how good they are at their best, the way they dominate teams, the way they finish teams off. I mean, so many reasons that right now Manchester City are better on the football pitch than Real Madrid.
Well, they were 12 months ago as well, and look what happened. It's just you get those funky results.
And that's the reason why I threw in, you know, the outworldly sort of hold that Real Madrid has when it comes to this competition, because we can only really talk about football, and to try and analyse a game and a pairing and what you think might happen on the football field, you really have to rely on what's going on the football field. And the truth is that Manchester City are by far the most consistent team between Real Madrid and Manchester City. Now, again, people would argue with me, well, when it comes to the Champions League, there's nobody more consistent than Real Madrid. But in this trip so far for Real Madrid, they've shown that they can be vulnerable. You know, Liverpool at 2-0 at Anfield, it looked as if they controlled themselves and got themselves back in the game and whipped Liverpool's backside 5-2. But I can assure you, that's not what Ancelotti was thinking at the time. So, you know, they're not always going to be able to get away with situations like that. And I think if that happens against Man City, I don't believe they're going to get away with it. But
no.
Hocus pocus, it's got to be Real Madrid, isn't it? Hocus pocus.
What, is this some sort of Harry Potter follow-up from you? You've already said that you don't think Milan will reach the final, so you think Inter will win. But who do you think are favourites going into that game if that was to happen and Inter see off Benfica?
I mean, I don't think there's an awful lot between them.
No.
And again, when you're looking on the football field, you're trying to compare a Champions League semi-final to a league game.
Not possible.
It's not possible. It's just a completely different animal. And to figure out the outcome, listen, I've gone way into because I don't believe that Milan can defend as well as they did against Napoli over these two games. I mean, they virtually didn't give them an easy chance. You know, they always got a defender there, or the goalkeeper made a save. You know, there was always a reason why they didn't concede up until the very last second against Osimhen. But I just don't think they can do that and get away with it again, which is the only reason why I'm going for Inter. Because I don't think Inter are special, but I just think that if you're going to defend with your life, sometimes you end up losing it.
Oggy, who are the favourites for the two semis, assuming it's Man City, Real Madrid, and Inter against Milan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Milan tonight. I'll start with the Milan side. I think it's too close to call it. I mean, what are they? The fourth and fifth in Serie A. There's not really a lot between them. I just go for the stuff, the non-football stuff, in the sense that Milan are the kings of Europe and Italy. I think Inter have got that thing where they always feel inferior to Milan in Champions League, so where there's a bit more pressure on Inter to kind of right that wrong. But I'll just go with Milan. I think Milan have been impressive over the two legs. They've kind of overcome that massive deficit in the league, and I think I'll just go for Milan. I just think Milan, certain teams get the job done in the Champions League, so I'll go with them. But in the other tie, I do kind of slightly favour City. I think Haaland makes a difference this year, but you know, can City handle Vinicius Junior? Will Benzema be the key again? I think the decisive factor in this one could be the fact that the second leg is at the Etihad, not the Bernabeu. That was a massive thing last year, that the Bernabeu basically got it over the line for Real Madrid. So, I mean, that's the final, isn't it? City Real is probably it's the ideal final, but it's not going to be. So, I think it's going to be a City AC Milan final, and City all the way, I think.
Stevie, who's winning this?
City.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.